There is a moment if you have ever driven it that stays with you. Not the speed, the silence. The way a car materializes in your mirror from what appears to be nowhere, traveling at a velocity your nervous system was not designed to process, and simply passes. No horn, no aggression, no drama. The car moves left, moves right, and disappears into the distance like a thought you almost had. And then you realize your hands are gripping the wheel harder than the situation required. Not because anything dangerous happened, because nothing did. And somehow, that was harder to process than if something had. That moment is not about cars. It is not about speed limits, or engineering, or German efficiency. It is about two completely different understandings of what it means to share a road with another human being. And once you see the difference clearly, you cannot look at a highway the same way again, because the road, it turns out, is not infrastructure. It is a self-portrait. The American highway was not designed to fail. It was designed around a specific psychology, the psychology of a country that built its entire identity on individual freedom, personal space, and a deep, culturally encoded suspicion of what strangers might do if you let them get too close. The highway reflects that at every level. Every element of it, from the speed limits to the signage to the unwritten social codes of lane behavior, was built for a population that fundamentally does not trust the driver next to them. And why would they? There was no rigorous process to put that driver there. There was a written test, a cautious loop around a parking lot, and a laminated card. That is the credential. That is the entire vetting process for operating 2 tons of steel at highway speed, surrounded by other people's families. So the American driver adapts. They develop what is called defensive driving, which sounds responsible and probably is, but underneath the technique is a psychological posture, a constant, low-grade threat assessment running in the background of every commute. Everyone around you is a potential problem. The driver drifting toward the line in the next lane, the truck merging without signaling, the SUV riding your bumper on a wet road at night. And then there is the particular, almost ritualistic annoyance of the driver sitting in the left lane at exactly the speed limit, not going anywhere, not moving over, radiating a kind of passive aggression so refined it might as well be a personality type. The American highway is exhausting not because of the traffic, though the traffic does not help. It is exhausting because every driver is running a private security operation, alone. In a vehicle surrounded by strangers, they were never given a structural reason to trust. And here is where it gets statistically uncomfortable. The Autobahn, the road with no general speed limit, the road that is supposed to be the dangerous one by every intuitive measure, has a lower fatality rate per mile driven than the American interstate system. Let that settle for a moment. The slower road is the deadlier one. This is not a rounding error or a quirk of data collection. It is a structural result. And the structure is psychological before it is anything else. The German licensing system is not just demanding. It is transformative in the precise way that any genuinely difficult process is transformative. It changes your relationship to the thing you earned. The process routinely costs several thousand euros, takes months of professional instruction, requires candidates to complete mandatory first aid training, and includes supervised driving at highway speeds before anyone is allowed near an Autobahn unsupervised. The financial barrier gets mentioned frequently in these conversations. It is not the most important part. The most important part is what happens inside a person who went through all of that and came out the other side. They know exactly how they got there. They know what the car does under hard braking at speed. They know what oversteer feels like before it becomes a headline. That knowledge does not just sit in the brain as technical information. It becomes identity. It becomes the difference between a driver who hopes they can handle a situation and a driver who has already handled that situation in a controlled environment, with an instructor watching at a speed that made it real. One of them is silently counting on the lane departure warning to be paying attention. The other one already is. That is the person who arrives at the Autobahn. And what they arrive at is not simply a road, it is a contract. The Autobahn functions on a principle so structurally simple it sounds almost naive until you watch it operating at scale. Keep right, pass left, signal, move. That is the entire agreement. There is even a law encoding it, the Rex Fargabat, the legal requirement to remain in the right lane except when overtaking. The law exists, but the law is almost beside the point at operational speed. What actually enforces the system is not a police presence. It is physics, and it is collective psychology working in alignment. When every driver on the road understands the rules, not as personal restrictions imposed from above, but as shared infrastructure, as the precise conditions that make the speed safe for everyone simultaneously, the system becomes self-enforcing. You stay right because staying right is how the road functions for all of you. Ego has no logical address inside that framework. Not because Germans lack ego, because the architecture of the system makes ego structurally impractical. Here is what that actually requires in practice. It requires you to trust completely and without the ability to verify that the driver behind you currently approaching at 180 miles per hour, which is not an abstraction, is competent. You have never met this person. You have no access to their driving record, their reaction time, or their mental state this particular Tuesday morning. You must simply assume that they belong there, that the system produced them correctly, and that when this moment demands precision from them, they will deliver it. That is not a trivial thing to ask of a human being. For a culture built around individual responsibility, personal autonomy, and deep ambivalence about whether institutions actually produce what they claim to produce, that level of unconditional social trust in a stranger moving very fast directly behind you is not just uncomfortable. It is almost structurally incompatible with the operating assumptions most Americans carry onto a road. And this is where the left lane becomes the most psychologically revealing strip of pavement on the planet. On the American highway, the left lane is territory. Occupying it is a position. Moving out of it when a faster car approaches feels in a way that is difficult to articulate fully but immediately recognizable to anyone who has driven American roads, like conceding something. Like losing a small, wordless argument that nobody officially started. The brake check is a power move. The horn is a declaration. The driver who sits in your mirror a beat too long before reluctantly moving over is not delayed. They are making a point. What should be a purely logistical exchange between two vehicles traveling at different speeds becomes loaded with social meaning, with hierarchy, with the particular species of ego that needs to be right more urgently than it needs to arrive anywhere. You have felt this. You have almost certainly been this. It does not make anyone a bad person. It makes them a product of a system that never asked them to be anything else. On the Autobahn, this entire psychological layer does not exist in the same form. Not because it was legislated away or culturally suppressed, because the situation renders it incoherent. When something appears in your mirror, traveling significantly faster than you are, the correct response is so geometrically obvious, so physically undeniable, given the closing speeds involved, that personal feelings about yielding cannot rationally survive contact with the moment. There is no available ego position that makes physical sense at those velocities. The Autobahn does not ask you to be a more enlightened person. It simply constructs a situation in which being a less enlightened one stops being a viable option. That is the part that stays with you after you leave it. Because the American road is not struggling because American drivers are fundamentally worse. It is struggling because the system was built around the ego rather than designed to make the ego irrelevant. It gave the ego room. It accommodated it, managed it, distributed everyone across wider lanes at lower speeds to give the whole fragile arrangement somewhere to breathe. The German system made a different architectural decision to produce drivers who did not need the road to confirm anything about them because they had already confirmed it somewhere else, in a car, with an instructor, at a speed that did not forgive mistakes. The road did not make that difference. The system before the road did. Somewhere between those two approaches is a question that has nothing to do with kilometers per hour. It is about what you require from a stranger moving fast in your direction. It is about whether you can extend trust before it has been earned in terms you personally set. And it is about what it reveals, not about Germans, not about Americans, not about roads, but about the specific story a culture tells itself about what other people are capable of when no one is watching, at speed, with everything on the line. Most people never ask that question directly. They just drive, and the road answers it for them.